every listener. This is once again the Spectre of Anti-Blackness podcast. I am your host once again, and today we're going to talk about something that we were going to talk about a few weeks ago. And I did make an episode on it, but the episode, like, I only watched the first episode. I didn't really get very deep into it. I started talking about other stuff. So this is the actual full podcast episode of that show, which, as you know by the title, is Lovecraft Country. Uh, so yeah, I just finished watching it, and boy, it's a mixed bag. There's a lot of fucking there's a lot of shit going on in here. Uh, Lovecraft, I feel like does some things very good, just excellent, and then other things it handles poorly or not enough, you know? So I'm just gonna, I did take some notes here, very, very general and broad notes, but, I'll use those as the basis, as per the norm. So let's get into it. All right, let's do this, y'all. So Lovecraft is a show crafted in 2020. Weird sentence. But it's about uh, people in Chicago in the 60s. Uh, so it's a show that deals with a lot of historical events and also like a lot of little known stories that like normal people wouldn't have known about. Like how, I don't know if this is true or not, I didn't research it. Um, but they say in the show that, what's the comet called? Harris Chariot, I believe, was named by a little black girl, but the Astronomy Institute didn't want that notoriety, so they actually said it was named by like this astronomer's daughter. Which, if that's true, I mean, dang, that sucks. But also, cool. I didn't know that was that her naming it, not it being stolen from her. But just little things like that it puts in there, and I think that's pretty cool personally. The big draw of this show, also, where the name is derived from. So it not only does it deal with like these historical black events and in these black places with these black stories, it also has this element of horror to it, specifically quote unquote Lovecraftian horror. I don't really know what that is. I know who Lovecraft is. I never read any of his books. Um, because why would I? But yeah, that was like the big draw of the show, how it's got this Lovecraftian horror. And sorry if I clear my throat a lot throughout this. I just got getting over sickness right now. But anyway, so the show deals with its main genres. I'm gonna say are sci-fi, fantasy, and horror. Definitely like the sci-fi and fantasy really picking up later on in the season. Um, and they also do this thing in every episode that's really cool. Well, not every episode, but it happens notably and like near the end and a couple of the beginning episodes too. They have like these excerpts from different speeches of like I'm assuming are black figures throughout the years, which is cool. And I mean, all of that to say that Lovecraft really tries to juggle a lot, and it just does a whole bunch. Like this show starts off extremely strong, like it's wild. Um, with all of these like nice shots of like life back in the '60s, and then there was the whole thing about like the sundowning and all that. It was really decent, really cool. Um, in the first like so how this show and how a lot of shows operate that I've noticed, or at least like um, like one season shows, or also I'll get to that tangent later. But yeah, how a lot of shows operate is in the first couple episodes they'll introduce like the major plot line and premise. Throughout the middle of it, they're gonna meander through that a lot and only really solve it in the end because like it's like a movie, but they gotta really stretch the movie out. And I wonder if TV shows have to be done like that, or like if they can be done differently. You know, I feel like it's evident in this show. Like throughout a lot of the middle, you're like, okay, what's going on here? But yeah, the first two episodes are uh majorly focused, heavily focused on like the main story and plot line to like draw people in. This is what our story is about. This is what we're going to be focusing on. And then they've got what, 6-ish, 7-ish episodes of everything else, and then the final episode's like, okay, this is the end of what we said we were going to be talking about. And that second episode ends with this white woman using a black man um, to help her kill her father and kind of like uproot her patriarchal uh, the system in which she's been living in. Which I'm like, damn, that's uh, that's gonna ruffle some feathers. Um, but yeah, anyway, episode one is kind of where we first introduce the story, major plot lines and themes, and then episode two is where we round out and conclude the beats of the first episode, also like starting the story threads of the rest of the season. And then in season three, so this is where where I say that they talk about a lot of like historical black events and stories that might not have been like very well known. They say that in the beginning, it says there were these three black people who moved into, I don't remember if it was East Side, I think it was East Side Chicago, or maybe West. I don't remember. I've never been to Chicago. Um, but yeah, they moved in and then they just disappeared, and it says like pioneering is hard. But then it takes that and flips it on its head as Letty, the main love interest, who of course light skinned. I think I talked about that in the first one, so I'm not going to get too much into it in this one. Um, she moves into this house, and her white neighbors are antagonizing her and stuff. So it does a really good job of highlighting that historicalness of it. Um, uh, and then she finds in her basement that there's these there were these dead black people who kept getting there was this guy who was doing like these weird science experiments, and he would steal black people from the south side and like experiment on them. So their spirits are trapped in his house, but so are his. She, with the help of magic, and there's like this priest who comes by. She mentions Orisha like maybe once or twice, I'm pretty sure, which I thought was cool. Maybe that'd be a theme going on, but we'll get to that later. I feel like they really muddled and fucked up in the whole quote unquote magic system. Um, and so she exorcises the white man, and then these three white men come into her house to try and like kill her, but they get killed by the house, which is now like the black spirits are vibing with her. So that's you know it's a sad story that they tried to turn on its head, and they do that a lot, and I think that's pretty cool. Um, and then we have another plot episode in episode four. They gotta find these pages or whatever. Not really important to it's important to the narrative, but not to what I'm telling you guys about. Um, and then we have a episode, an episode with Letty's sister Ruby, um, dark skinned chick, who she turns white. Like there's this whole thing where she drinks this potion to be able to turn white and stuff. It also focuses, so it does these episodes on like people individually for a time, not full episodes, but like big major chunks of them. So it focuses on her wanting to be white and living in white skin and kind of understanding that whole thing, I guess. And also like the drag scene of South Side Chicago, which I don't really know much about that. But uh, Tick, the main character, his dad or probably dad is gay, so it also deals with a lot of like repressed sexuality and coming to terms with that, which is pretty cool. And then they have this Korea episode, um, and then they have an episode with um, I didn't list all the characters in the beginning. It's gonna be too complicated to explain who Hippolyta is, but she essentially has her own episode. And throughout all of these episodes, there are like little major plot points being drizzled through. Um, and then there's the Emmett Till episode. Uh, Hippolyta's daughter was apparently friends with Emmett Till. They were best friends. And then, that whole funeral and all this stuff. She also has her own episode. She's getting chased by, well, it's in this episode. It's not her own episode. But she gets chased by these little demons and stuff. It's a whole thing. But anyway, so like that's like most of the season right there, and a lot of it is kind of just like dragging, at least on the first watch. And I was like, at this point, I knew a lot of people who were like ready to throw the story away. But then the penultimate episode, they go back in time to the Tulsa massacre of 21, and that saves the show in a lot of aspects. Um, Kind of like episode 1 of Star Wars, where everyone saw the Darth Maul and Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon fight and was like, oh shit, this is good. Kind of like that. And then the final episode, you tie up all the major story, plot lines, theme, and stuff like that. Um, and then, maybe leave stuff open for a second season. Which, now I'm bringing back that tangent. See how I shelved it, but I didn't forget it, so we were able to stay on topic. Um, they canceled the show. They didn't really know what to do for the second season, and it got too expensive apparently. But they canceled it, so no more Lovecraft. It's just one season, and that's it. So yeah, now to just kind of discuss like certain different parts of it and how I feel about them and all that kind of thing. Uh, okay. First of all, Letty and Tick's relationship, it sucks. I don't know why they always have to do this in these black shows. They have the two black main characters, the dark skinned guy and the light skinned girl, obviously, and like they have this love hate, and it's like, oh, it gets better in the end. Like they reconcile a lot of stuff, and I'll give them that. But it starts off just so annoying. Um, the main character himself sucks. Tick. He's not a likable guy. Um, and I get it. They're talking about a lot of like generational trauma and passed down this and this, and I never learned what love is. Um, and he also improves, but then he dies. So, well, first of all, spoilers, by the way. Um, but yeah, I mean that's neither here nor there. Um, the white okay, so there's like I didn't really talk about them too much, but there's white people in the show. There's like this his ancestor who was a slave bore the child of her master, her enslaver, and so there's like these two families, his family and her family. Um, and Christina, the daughter who kills her dad with the use of the black man, is she's I don't get her. She's 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 wild. She gets really crazy in the Emmett Till episode. Before then, she's kind of just like mysterious and like, what the fuck is she planning? Like she's playing both sides. She's like, I'm not your enemy, but I'm not your friend either. You can't really trust me. Which is like, that was a really cool dynamic to kind of understand. And her being representative of the white women, it's like, it's a step below white men, but still, it's white. Um, anyway, in the Emmett Till episode, she freaking she pays these two white men to do to her what happened to Emmett Till. So they beat her senseless, shoot her a couple times, and then tie barbed rope around her neck and around the cotton gin thing, and then toss her into the river. Um, and then she gets out of the water and she's like all screaming and crying and stuff. Because she had a talk earlier with this other character, Ruby, who's saying like, you don't feel what I feel, you don't understand what I understand. And I guess her rationale is like, okay, if I go through this, then I will. But no, you're still not a young black man who got ambushed by these like however many five odd freaking old ass white dudes who, that had to be such a horrifying, terrifying experience. And you paid these two guys to, like, that's not the same. And all the experiences that come from being black leading up to that, it's not something you can replicate. I don't know why they had that in the show. Um, but like I said, it's really trying to balance a lot of things. Um, and then they eventually come to this point where they have developed a spell to stop all white people from using magic. And I'm like, okay, so let me just go back. Let's talk about the magic now. Um, the main premise of the show is that there's this white guy called Titus Braithwaite, and apparently he was able to use magic for some reason. They don't really get into why or how, but he's got magical blood. Has a baby with one of his enslaved humans, uh, and then she burns down his house and burns down his house, takes his secret special spell book, and runs off. And then the book is passed down through the main character Tick, through his family or whatever. Um, and they say, in one of the early episodes, they're like, "Whoa, white people can use magic too." And also, I was talking about the Orisha woman earlier, the priest. She says something about Orisha, and oh yeah, come help her. She's doing this exorcist or whatever. But they kind of lump spirituality and everything into this quote unquote magic, which it's got a number of issues because it's not magic, you know. Um, and then I like what are they trying to say here? Because they say later in the episodes that the book it's ours, it's for our family, yada yada. But like freaking and so they're all trying to get the main character or whatever because he's like the last blood descendant of the old white dude, and he's kind of special in this way, but they're really like shooting themselves in the foot because the magic, the only reason that they can freaking do it is because of this white guy's blood and this stolen book. It's like nothing, it's like it all just came from whiteness and white people in the end anyway. So like, that was a little confusing to me. Like, what are they trying to say here? And then they cast some, I don't know, that was just so odd to me. It's like, it's in the final episode, and then they're like, yeah, we cast a spell. Not just you, no white people can use magic. I'm like, what the fuck does that even mean? Um, so yeah, it was, I think it's cool how they had magic in the show, but I just don't feel like it was really, uh, focused on and fleshed out as much as it really could have been. Um, and man, this show is really like um, Christian in a lot of ways I didn't see the first time. Like they kind of shove it through like memories in like one of the final scenes, but like Tick the main character, he gets baptized by his girlfriend. Um, she, it's kind of weird how like pro Christian it was. So I feel like there was like this lack of understanding of the full picture. Uh, but I did feel like it was a really, it was nice. It was a good show. It was a good time. I ultimately I did enjoy it. So I know what you're all thinking now. You're all just sitting there asking, "Hey, Spectre of Anti-Blackness guy, But what about the number score? Where are you gonna give the Spectre? No, Lovecraft Country. What is it on your chart? Is it a watch? Is it a don't watch? Consume, don't consume." And I say to you, yeah, I'll tell you. Just give me a second. Um, Going by my 1 out of 10 ratings, I gotta give it a 6. Which, if you remember, that was fairly mostly good. Usually doesn't hold up to scrutiny. It's very flawed, but still works. I feel like I would have watched this second season of it, even though they killed off the main character in the end, and they killed off a lot of characters. Um, but I wouldn't give it a 7 because I don't feel like it was hard enough to watch a second time. I probably for sure wouldn't watch it a third time unless like I was watching it with someone who hadn't seen it before. Um, would I say this is a watch though? Like, is this like something I'd recommend for Black people to see? Um, it's tough because for a lot of parts of it, I'd say yes, especially like where it excels, which is with like that historical stuff and like historical facts that you don't really know, and really it almost shines a light and like paints a picture. It's like a looking at a picture into the past, and they do that really well. But everything else, I feel like they kind of they probably should have just focused on that. Um, but I don't know. Who am I as a director, screenwriter? Um, they get very sci-fi and fantasy, and they're freaking the one they go into the alternate dimensions, and she's got so the daughter she's got a freaking robot hand at the end, and walks up on the white girl who's trapped below rubble, who I don't remember them ever meeting in the show. Um, but she's like asking her to help her, and she's like, "Oh, you haven't learned yet." And she just reaches down and squeezes her throat until it explodes. And I'm like, "What the fuck is that? What are they trying to say?" I don't, and yeah, then it ends. Um, I'm gonna say, sure, watch this. Um, you know, like I said in my previous episode, I don't think every piece of black entertainment, of black media, has to be like, you know, peak perfection. We're gonna have some slumps here and there. Not everything we make is gonna be gold and all like that. Um, but this is still a good show for what it's good for. I don't think the bad stuff outweighs the good enough for me to say don't watch this. It's good. Sorry about that, by the way. Um, so yeah, that's all I got for you guys today. I don't know what I'm gonna talk about in the next one. YouTube video that'll probably be finished. It's indefinite. I haven't looked at in a little while. Uh, but yeah, I hope that your airways stay fresh and clear. All right, don't get anything in those. That's not a fun thing to do. So yeah, I'll see you guys in the next one. Uh, Maybe I'll get sick again. That's when I usually, you know, shell these out, or when I have a big project ahead. We'll see though. Uh, anyway, if you're new to the cast, why the heck are you starting here? What's going on? Uh, there was a beginning for a reason. Uh, or if you just found the Lovecraft thing, fine, I guess. But don't listen backwards and forwards. I mean, do what you want, I guess, but there's a progression here. You're jumping in at a weird time. Um, if you're a long time listener, no, actually, I don't have anything else to say. All right, bye.